So our next panel will be on the e-commerce conundrum, balancing service, price, margin, and growth. And leading this panel is Dr. Kanwei Hui. Please take the stage. I'll let you introduce your panelists, but just briefly, Dr. Khan is an experienced project manager with over 10 years of experience in production planning, project, and consultancy. She has both an MBA and a DBA. She's a proud STEM graduate, I'm pleased to say, so well, part of the science community, which is great. And she's from University Malaya. She's currently a program lead and senior lecturer at Wawasan Open University, specializing in logistics and supply chain management. So thank you, Dr. Khan, and over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you have a great lunch. So if you feel very tasty, you can have the coffee outside. So I hope you will enjoy the section with our panelists. So here we have Mr. Hanif. Okay, he is a founder and CEO at Delyva. Welcome on the stage. And we also have a very pretty Miss Natasia, a country head at Teleport Singapore. Welcome. And also we have Mr. Patrick Wong, country manager for GOGOX Singapore. Welcome. So our panel discussions for today is the e-commerce conundrums, balancing service and price margin and growth. So e-commerce, as we understand that after the pandemic is grow dramatically. So I guess many of you here knows how to buy things online. So e-commerce is online platform so that everyone will goes on that, especially during the COVID pandemic. We have a lots of like Grab Food, Food Panda, we go for Shopee, Lazada, Amazon, whichever platform shop.com to get our daily users or any things that we need to purchase online because we cannot go out shopping physically. So on top of that, our logistic grows because of these pandemic issues. Previously, seldom of people will go to buy things online and they will think that it's not secure and they will think that you cannot touch it, feel it. But nowadays, the world changed. So in this dramatic world, okay, e-commerce business are such that how we going to meet the customer expectations, okay? How we can get the profit margin? Everybody is asking, how's the logistic cost can be reduced for the e-commerce? Or how's the knows that the customer satisfactions on that? But for today, when we are discussing, we try to get more interesting on how the e-commerce industry will be grow. Okay, in this highly dynamics with customer preference, market trends. Okay, so maybe we can check with our panelists that how can the business stay adapt to this challenge and maintain the balancing between service, okay, price margin and growth. So are there specific approach that they can employ? Maybe we can start from Miss Natasia.
Okay. Ladies first, huh?
Yeah, ladies first. So ladies.
Yeah, testing. Yeah, maybe we do a round of introductions real quickly.
Yes.
I'm happy to start. In case you missed it, I am the country head for Teleport Singapore. Teleport is actually a fully owned subsidiary of AirAsia. And our focus, or our mission rather, is to move things better than anyone else across Southeast Asia. And what does that mean exactly? It means we move things faster and more affordably compared to our peers. That's the thinking.
Okay, everyone. First of all, thanks for having me here today. I'm Patrick from GOGOX Singapore. So GOGOX is an on-demand logistics platform. So we're an app-based solution, but we also provide enterprise or customized transportation delivery services, mainly middle mile and last mile, to our clients, as well as we support 3PLs like your DHLs, FedEx of the world. Unfortunately, we do not have business and operations in Malaysia, but I'm here to share the Singapore experience as lay as we can in terms of where we are coming from, in terms of the last mile logistics.
Hello. Hi everyone, I am Hanif, founder and CEO of Delyva. So at Delyva, we help businesses, e-commerce businesses, to streamline their delivery and return processes. With Delyva platform, you can find and book the best performing courier services at the best discounted price. So we help businesses to connect to multiple couriers in our platform and help them improve loyalty and customer experience, post-purchase experience on our platform. So we also we help them to connect to more than 20 couriers, including Teleport. GOGOX is not in Malaysia, so we are not connected with them. We have partners similar like GOGOX, like Lalamove, Grow Express, and many others.
Sorry. No worry, later after that we can have the connections between Delyva and GOGOX in the futures. Okay, so maybe Miss Natasia, you can start on discussing how's the balancing service that we can go for it between that.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, balancing is quite tricky, at least in the world of e-commerce, because you're really driving a business that's driven by customer behavior that's severely unpredictable, right? And I think what we have seen in recent times, basically, post-pandemic era, your customer has gone from spending money into purchasing e-commerce products, and they've moved from that into spending more on services, right? Inflationary pressures, increase in commodity prices, basically has resulted in a decrease in online purchases. Now, I think what's interesting though is if you look at the e-commerce trends, the volume growth that was recognized from 2018 to 2022 was about 40% CAGR. But I think what's not mentioned is that the bulk of that growth happened during the pandemic era. And during that period of time, there was this mad rush to ride on this amazing wave of growth. And I think the question now for a lot of companies is, do you ride on this wave, or is it more a cautionary tale of, hey, let's have a last mover advantage and watch and see? So I think one of the questions was also, is there a framework, to start thinking about this? I think it's so complex, but my perspective is how you view it will differ depending on what's the underlying driver for this behavior change. So for me, at least in the pandemic era, you've got this change in behavior that's supposedly driven by COVID. And I think the underlying question is, when COVID goes away, will it still be there? That huge increase in e-commerce consumption. And I think what we can see, at least it's already happening in the States, happening in Southeast Asia. The answer is that was completely pandemic driven. And what has happened in turn is, at this point, a lot of companies, logistics companies specifically, has invested in aggressive hiring of warehouse operators, expansion of fleets, drivers, a lot of money tied up in fixed costs. And right now they're kind of paying the price. But the shift was so drastic. I would say the peak of hiring was around October 2022 last year, and very quickly now, around May 2023, you see a round of layoffs happening, right? And that's scary for any business. So my lesson though, when I observe that, is when it comes to behavior change that's so sudden, I think you want to be a bit more skeptical. Like, don't assume that it's going to be there forever. And funnily enough, I think this applies to both work as well as personal life, right? So if your partner's sudden behavior change, you kind of want to be like, okay, like what's driving this? And let's say you identify the driver, and the driver in this case was potentially COVID. I think we all know it's COVID. If COVID's not going to be there forever, then I think you want to be far more cautious. And how I would view it is, you want to ride the wave and prepare for a crash at the same time. So to me, riding the wave, at least from the perspective of logistics or e-commerce, for example, it would look like you're investing in this high volume growth. Maybe you're getting inventory, but you're not maxing out your inventory to meet all the demands just in case a crash happens, right? You don't want your money tied up in inventory. At the same time, for example, in logistics, you want to play that balance between variable and fixed costs. Probably don't want to invest too much money in fixed cost assets, but obviously this comes at a trade-off. So I would say at the earlier onset, there's some level of benefit to being the last mover. Observe a little, let your margins be a bit thinner. Thinner because you're not going to get volume discounts from lower inventory. The variable cost models typically work out to be a bit more expensive than fixed cost models. But sacrifice that margin, still ride that growth. And once you're very sure that the driver behind that behavior change is going to stay for a long period of time, then perhaps that's when you want to shift to a bit more of a fixed cost model, right? So I think my tip would be ride the wave, but you probably want to play around with your fixed and variable cost components. In terms of preparing for the crash, though, I would say for everyone, e-commerce companies, even logistics companies, nothing beats forming direct relationships with the end consumer, because I think that pretty much protects you from, I guess, middleman behavior. So we talk e-commerce industries. If we look at marketplaces, for example, they have gone from being purely a platform player, the bulk of revenues coming from ads, to going to the space itself. JD.com selling their own JD.com products. So if you imagine if a crash were to happen and everyone's trying to offload all these inventory because consumption has dropped, I think there's a higher likelihood that they would then, and by the way, I'm not saying this is happening, I would think logically these people would want to load off their inventory themselves. So if you as an e-commerce business has not formed that direct relationship with the end consumer, then that there's a risk that your brand's not there, you're going to get crowded out by all these larger brands, and therefore you're going to feel the crash far more than had you actually invested in forming your own brand and direct relationships with the end consumer. So yeah, that's my point of view.
Well,
for
it's
that.
very exciting, am I right? So maybe Mr. Hanif, so would you like to elaborate more on, in this perspective, and in the Malaysia's markets, how's they going to grow on that? Like Malaysia's e-commerce nowadays, so what's kinds of like the profit margin, the customer expectations, how's they going to feel that the satisfactions on all these kinds of e-commerce logistics?
Yeah. Like Natasia said, the e-commerce is slowing down. Real example that we see from on the ground in Malaysia, I'm not sure in Southeast Asia, like Chinese New Year sales, like Raya sales, and then normally we see like 50 to like double peak during the holiday season, but this year is like, is there any sales, right? So for me, what I think as a business, they should see e-commerce as one of the channels. So they should be offline and also online. Similarly, if they are going to online, they should be everywhere. They should be utilizing Lazada traffic, Shopee traffic, and now TikTok traffic to get customers. And as for balancing the growth, balancing the service pricing, customer expectations, we need to shift from, of course, when we talk about, everyone is coming from the logistics, right? So when we talk about delivery, everyone is expecting free shipping, right? But as a merchants or online businesses, that doesn't mean you have to choose the cheapest services available. I don't say that you need to choose the highest price of the services, courier services, but you can utilize data to pick the best performing courier. For example, with Delyva, we can recommend the best performing courier based on their 15-30 days performance. And by improving delivery speed or services, you can improve post-purchase experience. By improving post-purchase experience, you can also reduce churn and improve repeat purchase. As the volume goes down, it is more difficult to get new customers. And to acquire customers, you need to spend a lot of ads. So by improving your repeat purchase, customer post-purchase experience, you can reduce on the ad budget to get new customers. That's why I believe.
Thank you very much. I think I would like to say so. Yeah, I also a e-commerce shopper and also always look for the free shipping voucher so that we can not only save the money. So everybody is talking about the profit margins, how it's going to on. Then Mr. Patrick, how's your looks on these kinds of factors to achieve the long-term success, especially at the profit margin?
Okay, thanks. I think let's take a step back and add a bit of color here. First of all, e-commerce today, as we all sort of understand it, is your Shopee, Lazada's marketplaces, right? Buying your handphone cover, having it delivered. So always think of e-commerce as that. But if you take a step back, I think from a B2B perspective, right? Ordering office supplies, right? You used to make a call, today it's delivered. You order online, it's delivered. So I think that whole piece is very common today. Everything is very digitized, everything is very ordered and delivered. Then the other part also is we have to put on two hats, all of us in this room, right? The first hat is we are the ones ordering the handphone cover to be delivered. But as a client, as a brand, as a shipper, as a service provider, we also face that constraints in terms of service quality and price. Where ideal in Singapore is, first of all, we have established long-term partnerships with some key clients, right? And we are blessed and fortunate in the sense that we are able to sit down at a table with the client to negotiate prices, to give and take, right? I can give in on certain things, but you reduce certain requirements or services. So that's where the balance of price and service and margins is taken care of. Once in a while, we get a RFQ, right? It's a big brand. They come in, they say, you got to do X, Y, Z, and it's going to be that price, which is like right at the bottom. And they'll tell you, hey, 90 days credit terms. How can we do business like that? I mean, first of all, if a brand comes to you with that kind of thinking, to me, that's not a partnership. I'm not trying to be cocky here, but to a certain extent, we sometimes reject some of these RFQs because it is not realistic, right? Transportation, at the end of the day, is our drivers. Whether it's an in-house team or whether it's independent contractors, at the end of the day, they need to do X number of runs and make Y number of dollars to be able to bring food home to the family. So the question is then, how do we help them? So we try to look at two sides of the coin, right? How do we maximize service and margins with the client? But at the same time also, how do we help our drivers maximize their earnings? Right? And again, it's not rocket science. It's about volume, it's about clustering, it's about how you optimize the orders, right? So it's about co-creation, it's about getting to the table, sitting down, and then negotiating. Because there's always that saying, right? Cheap and fast won't be good, and what cheap and good won't be fast, right? So at the end of the day, clients or customers need to think from that perspective. So whenever we come to the table, you've got to put two hats, right? You're the guy making the order, but you're also the service provider. So that's how I would deal with it.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. So if in this sense that we have to put on different kinds of perspectives, how are we going to talk about the sustainability? Like sustainability is very important in the e-commerce sector right now. So what kind of business intelligence that we have to consider so that they can be grow, okay, is more strategic, and any successful approach that we can use so that it makes the business more sustainable? Anyone?
Maybe let me start on that. So first of all, I will admit, right, as I think Dr. Ramon mentioned it earlier, I myself and even my organization, we are still at the learning stage. So I think at the end of the day, we go back to the basics, right? So yes, everybody can, clients will come to us and say, hey, do you provide emission-free deliveries? Yes, we can. We have an EV, we can do all of that. But the question is that greenwashing? So first of all, today, one of our clients is public information, IKEA. We're delivering their parcels, anything that fits in a box, 100% emission-free deliveries. What this means is all of the parcels delivered by electric vans. But then the question is, okay, so that meets certain checkbox for certain KPIs, right? And we did it very quickly so that the sustainability officer or owner in the APAC region already met their KPIs. But the question is then, is it greenwashing? And I'll tell you it is, from my perspective. I mean, from our organization, not IKEA, but from my organization. Because you told me you needed emission-free, I put EVs. But did that solve the greater problem? Did that answer the greater question? So I think within an organization, we're going back to the basics. So first of all, to also meet some of this incoming scope 3 requirements, I think first of all, we need to understand what are we contributing today from a diesel perspective or diesel. I think we need to start doing that detailed record keeping, managing, analysis of all that data. Then also applying that data together with what we are doing with the electric deliveries, the emission-free deliveries, right? How much energy, how much kilometers, and then it's really rocket science to us. What's the carbon emission and all that, right? Offsetting. So for us, we are learning. We are not there yet, but I think increasingly there are going to be clients asking us to have sustainable solutions within our service offerings.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Patrick. How's about Miss Natasia?
Yeah, happy to chime in there. And I guess for me, I'm happy to give two perspectives, which is, hey, the general e-commerce players' perspective, as well as Teleport's point of view, I guess, where sustainability is concerned. I think it's quite a buzzword now, to be honest. And, there's a lot of greenwashing happening. And I think ultimately the desire is to be more sustainable. But when you talk about price and margins, without education, nobody truly wants to pay. So I guess my perspective here is, even if there's a push for sustainability, if it's not coupled with some level of customer education, you're going to run into a problem where you could easily just churn customers. So I think at the heart of it, I think the beauty is you see a lot of companies, me being a woman, H&M, Mango, there's this huge push towards sustainability. And I think they've kind of done it well to a certain degree because education there happens. So for any company, I would say, if they do decide to make that shift from where we are today to, hey, we want to be a bit more sustainable, I feel like it really boils down to alignment of values. I think there's a need to go back to the drawing board if truly that's what the company wants to do, go into a more sustainable phase. And I feel once that alignment of value is there, you've identified your true north, which is, for example, in H&M's case, to have 100% of their products at least be made of recycled fabric, for example. If that is your true north and that's where you want to go, then automatically I would expect the hiring, the mindset, the culture of the people to ensure that your pricing, bearing in mind that you're driving growth in a sustainable manner, and basically you're adopting strategies that's a lot more sustainable. But having said that, I think even when you're thinking about sustainable shifts and changes, it could either happen on a product or a non-product level. And I think fundamental changes on a product level, like in the case of H&M and Mango, the fashion, the fabric completely changed entirely. To go there takes a longer time. But I think if that's the intent, then you're really looking at the product life cycle of your items from cradle to grave, basically, and running a deep dive analysis to identify, okay, at every point and juncture, how can I make it more and more sustainable? And there's no denying that I think at the end of it all, and this is why it hasn't been sustainable, you're going to end up with a higher price point for the most part. And if you don't bring along your customers in the education process, I think you may lose them entirely, and that has a different implication on the business. Having said that, on a non-product level, and I think this is where a lot of companies are trying to be a lot more conscious about things, including Teleport, there are creative ways to give back. Example companies I can think of is Patagonia. Has anyone heard of Patagonia? Yeah. So they're really focused on fashion involving like hiking materials. I'm doing a bad job describing Patagonia, by the way. But basically the CEO is an advocate for environmentalism, right? Trying to fight climate change. So in the process, some of the non-product things that he's done is he basically started listing other NGOs that actually is in a climate change space on his website. So he's using his branding to spread awareness. Other creative things that he's done that's non-product basis is he's imposed like an earth tax. I don't know if basically it's a self-imposed 1% tax. So 1% of I guess, all their revenues then get reallocated to other NGOs that are in this fighting climate change space. So other more straightforward ways, packaging, more sustainable packaging. But again, I think that is a bit more superficial. And if there's an intended need or desire to drive sustainable improvements in your business, I would say that the core will be a change in the values and therefore the product. Yeah. So having said that, now if we talk about teleport, the logistics space, unfortunately, it's not something that's top of mind right now. For us, I'm not saying it'll never be. I hope we'll move towards that direction. But what I can say for sure is, being a startup, we try be a lot more cost conscious. And the beauty though now is, as an AirAsia subsidiary, we are really focused on maximizing the utilization of assets that's already flying anyway. So for context, the reason why Teleport thinks we can deliver better than anyone else in Southeast Asia is because we're riding a lot on AirAsia planes, the passenger planes that hopefully all of you sit on. And, you know, being budget travelers, I think people are not aware that only 15% of the space underneath the plane is actually utilized for baggage. So for the most part, you've got a plane that's flying, that's producing all these carbon emissions, but it has been empty for the longest time ever. So at least for Teleport, we've identified that, hey, we can maximize the use of these assets at marginal cost, at marginal impact to the environment by, quite frankly, delivering e-commerce parcels, because it fits into all these passenger planes. So I would say we've unintentionally kind of developed a bit more of a sustainable approach by maximizing the use of assets that's kind of already damaging the environment anyway. But other than that, we're coming up with other approaches, creative approaches in our business. For example, we have a procurement process that allows us to purchase things secondhand. Not only does it save money for the company, but the whole concept of reusing is pretty much there. And I actually took a poly mailer. So we just released a product. So if you want to experience our same day fast delivery speed, we just released a consumer product. So this is called a poly mailer. It's not made of recyclable items yet, but basically we're trying to encourage the reuse of these. Number one, making orders or deliveries completely paperless. And number two, you can actually use this twice. So I don't know if you can see it clearly, but there's two sticky labels, right? So in our little ways, although it's not a major focus, we are trying to be a bit more of a sustainable logistics company as well.
Okay, thank you. So may I ask you, will we get free of these?
These ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, the good news is after this, we're more than happy to distribute these completely free. It's pretty straightforward. You just scan the QR code. It's open for KL into Singapore deliveries, so cross-border deliveries, and it says it arrives tomorrow, which means if you make an order today, then you can expect it, for example, to arrive in Singapore tomorrow. It's pretty kick-ass. I support it. I use it on a daily basis. Whenever my name card runs out and I order it from Malaysia, because it's more affordable and I'm cheap. So.
Well, later we get the free from you, right?
Yeah.
I saw your staff is holding on that,
Yes.
right?
So we'll distribute that later.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you for the support. And just now it mentions that as the academics here, I think that I agree with you that the education is very important, not only for the consumer, but for the people itself, that they have to know that how they're going to manage on that. So what's your point of view, Mr. Hanif, on that?
Sorry. So if you look at e-commerce in sustainability, right? You buy something, okay, let's say Malaysia, there are about 1.4 million parcels a day. So each parcel comes with a plastic bag, plastic flyers. So times 22 days, there's like millions of plastics. Times 12 months, that's how many millions of plastics. Is it recyclable? Is it sustainable? There's another question. But let's say if we, and then that sustainable deliveries, right? First mile, public transit, and last mile. And if we come to uh, traditional retail, you want to buy something, you go to the store. And now government have banned the plastic bag. You need to carry your own bag. Is this something that can be applied to e-commerce? Of course not, right? How can you carry your own bag? And when you buy something, maybe we can think of something similar like this to make it more green, the plastics. I think there's a lot of plastics, right? And then comes the issue with if it is uh, more sustainable packaging, is consumers are willing to pay, adapt. Similarly, how we adapt to when we go to the stores and buy and we bring our own bags. Let's say there's a ruling where all e-commerce merchants need to use sustainable or recyclable courier flyers. Consumers need to adapt and accept that, as we accept government ruling where we when we go to the shopping mall, we need to bring our own bags. That's my take.
Well, we still bring our shopping bags, okay, nowadays, more or less. If in Penang, we actually is no plastic bag in many shopping mall.
Every day, right?
Yes, every day. So my bags always will have the recycle bag, okay, so that we can reuse on that. Then I think in the standpoint of academics as educations, I think that this we have to adopt to everyone, okay, so that in mind that we have to know how to go for recycle, and then it will be helps on sustainably go for green supply chains at future. I think this is reduce the carbonate, everything is, I think this is relates to go for that. So it will be reduced, especially on the pricing on the raw material itself, so that it can be go for that. So in these kinds of education's way, we look on also the technologies to helps on educations or helps on reducing all the prices and reducing all the operations. What do you think that how can the business leverage technological advancements to enhance this both service quality and profit margin? Do you think that is possible to help? Maybe we can start from Mr. Hanif.
On the service and pricing, sustainable services and pricing.
Yeah, we use on the technology because
Delivery.
nowadays we are like just now we also talking about the digitalization. So nowadays we are more on rely on all these kinds of technology.
Okay, is it about delivery services? Or?
Yes, can be.
So prior to Delyva, I founded and managed a similar company like GOGOX, but purely on bikes. We do same-day delivery, last-mile delivery. So back then, when we talk about pricing, how we determine the delivery pricing, initially we started with flat pricing, 9 ringgit for same-day delivery in Klang Valley. But it's not sustainable because drivers doesn't like it. So there's a mismatch between supply and demand, right? Customer wants cheaper, but drivers wants more for their efforts. So when we do pricing, we need to make it sustainable. Of course, when we talk about sustainable, it's not just green. As a company, as an ecosystem, if we serve our merchants well, so we need to be alive, and then we need to pay drivers acceptable pays, right? To make it sustainable, meaning this year, next year, and the next few years, we'll be there to work with the merchants, and drivers and company will always be there to serve them. So when I go to Delyva, when we work on Delyva, we are not a delivery company. when we don't have a fleet, we don't have drivers, we just connect to courier companies. So when we determine pricing, things that we look at like customer satisfaction, whether the pricing is competitive, whether there is a margin for us, and whether the values that we add into the services match the pricing that we charge to the customer. So these are the things that
So do you think that the customer will pay extra on this?
So initially, of course, when we started Delyva, the value proposition is lower price. And then comes the competitors, lower price. So it's not sustainable as a business to just simply focus on lower price. Of course, we try to maintain lower price, but we need to add more values, right? If let's say, so initially we only have our business model only purely transaction based, where they pay for the delivery charges. But as we go along, we see that it's not sustainable, because whoever offers the lowest price, they will get the merchants or customers, right? So what we did is we try to add more values to our platform. For example, we give free email notifications. They can also use SMS notifications. Nowadays, customers prefer WhatsApp. They want to know where their package is, whether the merchant have fulfilled the package, what is the tracking number, how to track the package. So we introduce WhatsApp notifications. And then we see from our customers' feedback what else they need. So we try to add more values to the platform, to the services, so it can add more stickiness for our relationship with the merchants. That's what we do, and the type of customers that we look at also is quite important. For example, micro and small businesses, probably the values they are looking for probably is just saving money, right? But if you go to medium-sized businesses, enterprises, those who build their own platform, probably their problems, their pain points is different. So we try to tackle bigger, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, where we can add more values and add more stickiness to the relationship with the customers.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hafiz. So I want to ask from Mr. Patrick, what is your point of view, and is it the same situations happening in Singapore? But I know that it's not only in Singapore, maybe in the Asian country. Is it happen at the same thing like what Mr. Hafiz says that is happen in Malaysia?
And the question again is regarding the technology piece.
Sustainability with the technology itself, yeah.
So here's the thing, right? I see this group here, and maybe I can get shot later, but there are three groups of people in this room, right? One-third heavily into the whole ESG sustainability thing, right? Maybe in practice, doing it very well. Then the middle group is struggling to find out, struggling to learn how to do it. And then the third group, like myself, totally clueless, right? What sustainability and all this. But at the same time, as service providers, we're trying to figure out the sustainability thing. But if we put on the other hat, we are like consumers, right? We want to buy more. Buying more is made so much easier today, right? You can just click, buy a handphone cover and it's shipped from China. And do we think about that? Do we even worry about, hey, I'm contributing to that 1 million parcels coming from Malaysia? Do we don't? I think that's something we need to ask ourselves. So I'm trying very hard to try to be green, go green, trying to understand this whole thing. I think from a technology piece, in terms of how we are trying to achieve that, is we're trying very hard in terms of internal planning. How do we optimize our routes and orders, right? I think first of all, today there are certain ordering systems where you can say, okay, for this certain time slot, you have a maximum capacity of 300 orders. That's it, right? That's all the capacity can take. Then the next question is, I'm beginning to see this in RedMart when I shop. Sometimes I shop groceries, and then they'll tell you, hey, I give you $1 discount if you pick this time slot, because I'm guessing it's an empty slot, right? So that's a very good thing. So then I'm trying to ask myself, can there be a further advancement of technology, so much so that if I'm staying in this unit, this block, and a neighbor has already ordered, and they show me that this time slot, go and pick this time slot because it's literally next to my neighbor. Can technology help do that? Because at the end of the day, remember, it all boils down to the last guy delivering the package to your home. It's about number of orders, it is about optimization, it's about clustering. So can technology help that? I'm sure it's out there. I've not seen it yet. But in terms of some of the, in terms of ordering, right? I've looked at papers and research. I've seen examples in the US and Europe whereby AI or data used to be king, right? Now it's AI, right? They're actually prompting you, trying to figure out what you should be buying, because that's what's the inventory that's available, and it's available at the warehouse near your location. So I think technology is reaching that stage, that how can they really, really optimize and bring logistics, make it shorter, make it better and cheaper. That's how I see it.
One of the questions from our Q&A section is, why GOGOX is not in Malaysia? I think this is quite an interesting question, right?
Okay, just again, just being transparent. You are all familiar with our friends in the orange color, yeah? So both of us are both tech startups out of Hong Kong. They started like a couple of weeks just after us. We are king in Hong Kong, but sad to say, they are king outside of Hong Kong. So they are strong, they've got a lot of money. They are in countries like Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. We are only in Singapore and Vietnam for Southeast Asia, but we're in other countries like Korea and India. So, you know, that story about who is king and, you need to get all the orders. They look at GMV, right, not at revenue. That story, that boat has sailed, right? Today it's about profitability. So the plans are always there to open in Malaysia, but the question is, you have $1 today, where do you deploy it, right? If you put that $1, it has to give you back $2, right? So where do we do that? So it's beyond my pay grade when we're going to start in Singapore, start in Malaysia, but the plans are always there.
So I hope that maybe in future we can see how GOGOX and Delyva cooperate between and moving forwards to have better business engagements here. So let's look at the questions from our participations. What are the challenges in the predicting demand to meet the customer order? What do you think? In the e-commerce platform, okay, so what is the demand or the challenges that we look through, or the e-commerce logistic that can be meet the customer order? Encik Hafiz, or you can get it?
Maybe let me try and take a stab at this. Interestingly, in Singapore over the weekend, there was an article with regards to the F&B industry, right? So much so that the restaurants themselves cannot predict customer demand because demand or the way people consume or behave has changed drastically. Usually Friday night is the peak for a restaurant, but they are seeing suddenly Wednesday night restaurants are packed. Hey, but you're packed, I didn't get my supplies, I didn't bring in the extra waitresses. So it's very hard to predict because behavior has changed. Speaking as customers, I think it's more, for me, it's more our clients, like the big brands like the IKEAs and the telcos. I think how they are trying to manage prediction in terms of demand is when they specifically have sales, right? So when you have sales, you then look at data and then you predict the demand, and then coming back to us, that's where we co-create and then we work out solution in terms of how can we provide support, delivery support and capacity for those peak season surge. So it's about us planning with our clients for those specific campaigns and periods and providing adequate deliveries, support, vans, trucks, motorcycles, and even backup, right? Because it could be 100 deliveries today and 500 deliveries tomorrow, right? But again, at the end of the day, it's about data, it's about planning. You just have to plan for success, but as well plan for failure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Patrick. Because of shorten of time, we are going for the last questions. I think this is, maybe we would like to know that what is the next new wave in the e-commerce? What is the new next wave?
If I want to, from my perspective, TikTok is a new kid on the block, but it's quite challenging to market in TikTok because you need to do videos, right? And from what I heard from on the ground, TikTok is stealing orange color marketplace instead of the L marketplace market share. So probably because L marketplace, their customer base is different than TikTok marketplace customer base. So however, like I said previously, as a business, we need to be selling, try to sell everywhere, right? Offline and online. And online, you need to be selling on all the marketplaces, and you also need to have your own channels, brand.com channels, where if you are selling on the marketplaces, you don't really own the customer data. You cannot do remarketing. They probably don't really know you. They are loyal to the marketplace, but if they are buying from your own store, probably they know you. You can probably offer bigger discounts because you don't have to give the marketplace the commission. And that's on the e-commerce side. As for the retailer side, the physical retailer side, the chain stores, right? Convenience stores. What I see is, so at Delyva we serve both. Of course, we don't have our own fleet, but our courier partners comes from the on-demand delivery, which is instant delivery. They can deliver food, groceries, right? As well as standard parcels, domestic or international. So what I see from the e-commerce side, that's the trend that we are seeing. As for the physical retailer side, what I see is it's kind of similar like how e-commerce side going on. So initially they are selling on the of course GrabFood, Foodpanda, right? But similar problem, they don't own the customers. So they have we see a lot of these chain stores started to have their own loyalty apps where customers can get vouchers. Plus, they can also buy through the app. So with this, the customers will be more loyal. They have the customers' data. They can do remarketing, maybe birthday offers and so on, compared to if they are only selling on the.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's time's almost there. So before we ending the sections, I would just like to crop some important keynotes here, which for sustainability of the business, we have to not only look into the profit margin or the balancing service that we can go through, but we also have to look into how the company itself possible to get educations to the consumer or educations to their customers so that they will able to look into the best service that they can get and the best support or the best cooperations between the company to grow itself together. It's not only that we able to grow ourselves by educator through the market and through the publics, that we can also get stems to look into how the sustainability can helps to grow on the company itself. By all these kinds of balancing service and prime margin so that we can try to grow continually for e-commerce as we predict that the next wave is coming soon. So it's not like previously during the MCO or pandemic COVID periods grow dramatically, but people will look into the customer loyalty, the behavior of the purchasing, so that it will be specifics on certain area. And we hope also to see that GOGOX will be in Malaysia's cooperate with Delyva, and we also hope that teleports will be provide better service to us. And Anything would like to say before we end the sections for my panelists? Yes?
Maybe if I can add just one last thing before we end. The limelight today is for Natasia because she's on her way for a very important event. Teleport is launching their very own plane this evening, and the ceremony will be graced by the Agong. Yes. So everybody, please give her a hand and for Teleport.
Congratulations.
So much, Patrick. Not all credit to me, but yeah, the company has launched its first freighter planes ever. It's mainly going to fly through China. And yeah, I'm happy to also add on the topic of e-commerce trends. I think there's no denying that the geopolitical tension, and it's exciting for us in Teleport, kind of means that what used to be trade between China and US primarily will hopefully be shifting to Southeast Asia moving forward. So hopefully more cross-border opportunities, more e-commerce movements across countries, because I think it's safe to say it's been largely domestic movements, but moving forward, hopefully more cross-border movements. That's an exciting trend. And yeah, concurrent with what, I concur with what you say, Hanif, as well. I think social commerce is going to be very, very exciting. If you talk Shopee, Garena was their cash cow. TikTok, their ads as a cash cow is 20 times or 10 times the size of Shopee. So I think they've got a lot of money to spend and push for social commerce. And I think very quickly you're going to see social commerce make up more than 50% of e-commerce parcels. And I think that's really exciting times for us. And then there's new players like Temu that is driving cross-border e-commerce. So I feel like that's the trend. Where delivery is concerned, though, I feel the party's over, guys. The party's over for cheap subsidized delivery. Thank Russia and Ukraine to a certain extent. Fuel prices has gone up. Amazon Prime is increasing their prices. The days of free delivery, the threshold has gone up. And I think we'll continue to see that trend. But in a way, I think that's probably better for us logistics players. But I think moving forward then, your e-commerce players, you might want to think about your logistics costs because I foresee the party being over and it's going to trend upwards is my perspective. But that said, I think the freighter would hopefully help with this cross-border and keeping prices down. But yeah, thank you so much for the shout, Patrick. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything to add on? If no, then thank you for everyone to join us today and hope you enjoy the sections. And thank you for my panelists, Mr. Hanif, Miss Natasia, and also Mr. Patrick for their sharing. I think I gained the experience from them and learned a lot. And I hope you would enjoy the sections. And I pass the sections to Tricia.
Thank you very much.
Khan.
Thank you, Dr. Khan and your guests.